Hi, my name is Starla Moore, and I am an analytical technician at the Cleveland headquarters of McGean, and I'm going to show you the step-by-step procedure for our J-88L permanganate cleaner. I'm first going to start with the alkalinity portion of the J-88L test procedure, and as a side note, the J-88L sample can be filtered before we do the pipetting into the volumetric flask, and also it's usually best to warm the J-88L sample to 180 degrees just to circulate all the permanganate that is in the sample. So we're going to start by sampling straight from the sample bottle again. We're going to take a 25 milliliter sample again from the center of the sample. And again, make sure to wipe off the pipette to get rid of any excess sample. And we're going to place the 25 ml into a 500 milliliter volumetric flask. The J-88L samples can also tend to be slightly viscous, so you can rest the pipette again on the side wall of the volumetric flask to help drain all of the sample. Tap on the glass. We're now going to dilute this sample to the 500 milliliter mark, and again we're going to make sure we want to wash down the inside walls of the volumetric in order to get all the sample down into solution. Okay, after we dilute the sample to the 500 milliliter mark in this volumetric flask, we're going to place a stopper on it. And for this specific reason, we're going to invert the flask just to mix the sample well. We're going to take and pipette a 25 milliliter sample from the 500 milliliter volumetric into a 250 milliliter beaker. And we have already placed the magnetic stir bar in the bottom up here, which will be used in the titration. And place the 25 milliliters. Rest it so that the solution can drain out properly. And we're going to take the 25 milliliter sample that's in here and we're going to dilute it to 100 milliliters. And again, you want to make sure that you rinse down the inside walls. Make sure that all the sample has been washed down. Using our 100 milliliter diluted sample of the J-88L, we are now going to determine the percent based on alkalinity using a titration step. We're going to be titrating the sample with a 1.0 normal sulfuric acid and lowering the pH to a 6.0. So we have it sitting here on the stir. We're going to have constant agitation of the sample. Place the pH probe in. And you want to let it sit and let the pH stabilize. At this point we will titrate with the 1 normal sulfuric acid, lowering the pH to 6.0. And the pH of the solution can be lowered very quickly with just 1 drop of sulfuric acid, so you want to do it slowly. And once you have reached the pH of 6.0, you will record the milliliters of the 1 normal sulfuric acid that you used, and that will be used in the calculation for determining the percent based on alkalinity. After determining the alkalinity of the J-88L sample, we're going to use the same sample from the alkalinity portion of the test used to determine the permanganate. At this part in the process, we are going to add 10 milliliters of the 50% sulfuric acid to the sample. After adding the sulfuric acid, we're going to place it on the stir plate. This is also a stir plate and a heating plate, so we're going to heat to 180 degrees. And you're going to want to add some agitation to the sample. Just so that the sample heats consistently. We're now going to continue on in determining the percent concentration of the permanganate in our J88L sample. And just as a side note, we have the sample warming up here to 180 degrees on the hot plate with continued agitation. And you want to make sure that you don't overheat the sample or you'll get a brown ring that forms at the top of the sample, and then subsequently you'll get a lower concentration than is actually in the sample. So now that the sample is at 180 degrees, we are going to add 25 milliliters of the sodium oxalate to the solution. As you add the sodium oxalate to the sample, you'll see that it starts to bubble slightly, and you should see a change from the dark purple color to clear. The change is not always instantaneous, so it may require just a little bit of extra agitation after you've completed adding all of the sodium oxalate. In the case that the solution does not change from purple to clear after several minutes of agitation after the addition of the sodium oxalate, it is okay to add 5 to 10 more mils of the sodium oxalate to the solution. After the solution has cleared up from the purple color and you do not see any remnants of any brown or purple flakes in the solution, we're going to titrate with the potassium permanganate drop-wise until the solution turns from clear back to a faint pink or purple color. Once you obtain a light pink to purple tint to your solution, you want to make sure that it persists for at least 1 minute, and then you have reached the end point. After completing both the alkalinity and permanganate steps in the J88L procedure, we'll use the data obtained to determine the percent concentration based on alkalinity and the percent concentration of permanganate. In the alkalinity step, we will use the milliliters of the 1 normal sulfuric acid used times 19.08 to get the percent concentration based on alkalinity. In the permanganate step, we'll use the milliliters of sodium oxalate that we used and subtract the milliliters of potassium permanganate we used, and then multiply that by 3.52. We'll then use these numbers in further calculations to determine the correct amount of additives needed for the sample. All of the sample steps and the calculations can be found on the data sheet for the J88L, which also can be found on the McGean website.